Hello everyone, my name is Craciun Vlad. I'm working for Bitdefender and I'm also leading a small team where we're actually dealing with ransomware analysis, reverse engineering, cryptography, post-incident response and forensics. This presentation here is about a possible attempt to build a ransomware genealogy graph. So usually we have a lot of ransomware families, and at some point, based on our research, we found that most of these families share or inherit from specific sources from the first families, which appears years ago. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to highlight a bit this ransomware landscape and how the hackers behave. We're going to pass a bit through the technologies which allowed us to build this kind of graph. And then we will actually see some merge between these graphs. Okay. So this is how a hacker actually gets to peer into a victim's network. So basically, he has a small setup. He finds a vulnerability in the network that he wants to attack. So usually they either find vulnerabilities and just go on with them, or they perform specific attacks. Okay, so usually we have an entry point in the victim's network, and then hacker requires some time to understand how the vulnerabilities spread across this network and misconfigurations, and they kind of try to take profit of all these weak points. And then eventually you end up with all your network down. Maybe no system working anymore. Okay, so when you usually look at ransomware families and try to classify a specific family, you usually look on the ransom nodes, and there are some services available, or GitHub repositories where you can find some ransom nodes, and you may try to match your ransom node and actually see who you're dealing with, what kind of family. Or you may actually find a binary which was used by the attacker to perform the infection of your network, and then you can try to see if you have some specific detections from public databases like, I don't know, VirusTotal, Malware Bazaar, and so on. And then you can see who you're dealing with. Or we can go more low level in details to see if the code from our ransomware shares some similarities with other families. Of course, this is not something to do by anyone. So usually security companies reach this point of details. Okay, so basically if you're going to look for labels specific to a family that you're dealing with, you usually find difficulties in labeling of these families, because most of the security solutions are not so interested in correct labeling these families, but labeling them somehow such that the product triggers detections and takes some action. So actually, if you have a label, that label means that the product will solve the problem for you and maybe remove the threat and so on. But to build this genealogy graph, you actually have to have some correct labeling. So you have to see if your family or the binaries that you're looking on are similar with some other binaries from other families. Okay. So when we start building this genealogy graph, we surfaced 3 technologies. One of them was comparing ransom nodes. So we try to perform some k-means clustering on ransom nodes using distances specific to text tokenizing. Okay, this is one way, and we see where we try to see how different families matches against others, and we took about 300 ransom nodes from various repositories. A second technology is searching for labels in public databases like VirusTotal. We also have a threat intelligence database. And there is a third technology which helped us investigate this, which actually allows us to see how similar are the control flow graphs or the logic behind the code that we're studying. Okay, so first of the 3 technologies is comparing ransom nodes. We have here 3 ransom nodes from Monty ransomware, Conti, the 4th version, and Black Basta. They range from 2019 and 2022. And we see that they are pretty similar, so they share a lot. So because we also know which is the first one, so in our case, Conti is the first one, it means that maybe the other 2 got inspired from the Conti. So maybe Monty and Black Basta inspired from Conti, and they built something similar because it's more easy to take something which already exists and build upon it. Or we are actually talking about the same hacking group. So this is also another possibility. Okay, so we have here another similarity. We will see a couple of similarities in the next few slides based on these ransom nodes. So we have here Xeon, Conti, 2nd version, and Conti 1st version. So again, the first one is still Conti from 2019 here, and we also see that they are pretty similar. Only the bluish, greenish, and reddish lines are slightly changed, but most of the text it's still the same, which means that maybe Conti is at the root of these similarities. There is a statement from Cyberism which highlights some similarities between Conti family and some successors. I don't have here these successors like Royal Ransomware. However, I found a Twitter 2 years ago, I guess. I remade the picture, but you can find the actual one in the link provided below. So the guy posting this picture states that there were 3 Conti operators which derived from Ryuk ransomware, and from these 3 operators, one of them died, just disappeared in the beginning of 2022. And the other 2 operators went further and split. So for instance, the team 2 here developed into silent ransomware and quantum ransomware, and the first team developed into Karakurt, Black Basta, and Black Byte, and there is another branch which ended in Xeon and Royal Ransomware. Okay, so we have here some other few similarities between these ransom nodes. So the first picture at the top is compare between DarkSide, Buchti, and Babuk. And we also see here some similarities. So some similarities are higher, some similarities are lower in some comparings. So you don't find always the same level of similarities between these ransom nodes, but this also tells us that this tells us how far is a ransomware family from another ransomware family that we are comparing with. So we see that is a lower distance between the first two, left and middle, and maybe a bit higher distance in the Buchti and Babuk ransomware. Okay, and we have at the bottom another similarity between BTCware and Crisis or Dharma. So Crisis, I can say that is a family that still exists, and they started in 2016. There were some killings at that point, and we were able to decrypt a lot of encrypted files. BTCware also died at some point, and we also got a key leak. So BTCware doesn't exist, but Crisis and Dharma developed into other families, as we will see further. Okay, so this is a capture from our threat intelligence dashboard, where we see that between DarkSide, the left figure, and Lockbit, the right one, we have a similar naming in ransom nodes. So there are 9 random characters, .readme, .txt. And we also found these namings in other families, but they are related. This is another capture which shows us that some labeling, there are some different labeling for these binaries specific to these families, which contradict somehow. So we have here also black matter and dark side tagging, but in fact we're talking about the same root. So maybe those who are labeling these families don't necessarily understand how they are related, and maybe it doesn't matter because security products only have to have some labels to trigger detections. Okay. So this is the second technology that we're dealing with in building this genealogy graph. So usually when you go on public databases like VirusTotal and maybe others, you're interested in what are detections, so or what are the labels for which different security solutions provide in order, so you maybe take a few of them or an intersection or try to see if there is a specific amount of these labels for you to actually consider that family. So for instance, if we have here a Babuk sample, which triggers 18 out of 70 detections. So is it enough to consider that it is a Babuk sample? Maybe yes. What if we had only one detection? I don't know. Okay. This is a more concrete example. There is one ransomware family which is named Sugar ransomware. So we found a couple of samples which are original samples and packed as well. And the left most figure shows that there is no sugar label for these samples. So if I'm trying to find some sugar ransomware on these public databases, this doesn't help me, right? So I have to what? To find some unpacked binaries, or maybe download more samples like those one with no label at all, and maybe unpack by myself and then see what's happening. The middle picture is the same sample, not actually the same by hash, but the same in the way that they're pretty similar if you take a look on them. And we have here like 11 out of 70 detections triggered, and they include this sugar label. So this is okay, but the first image didn't help too much. And there is the third image, right at the right, which is the unpacked version of these samples, which include only one label, a single label for sugar ransomware. So all these vendors include a lot of labels for this family, but the first one, which is the most packed, and the last one, we have one label and maybe no label at all. So what should I have to do here to understand how they are related? Okay, so this is the third technology which allowed us to build this genealogy graph. So this is what we see here are some graphics for the previous ransomware, sugar ransomware. So at the left, we have some control flow graphs in the unpacked binary. So we see they are pretty similar. And at the right, we have some simple graphic, which is actually a traversal for the control flow graph. So if you're considering that detections and labeling consider a lot of features from a binary application, we only have here features because we can consider this graphic as a set of features for a time series, only for the code. So the control flow graph of the application. And if I'm overlapping all the 6 graphics, I'm actually seeing the same graphic. So there is not a single byte difference between these binaries. So sorry. So why the first figure here doesn't have any correct label for the detections provided by vendors? Maybe no vendor unpacked the binary to actually see that we're dealing with sugar ransomware. But we have in the middle a few others binaries which were maybe unpacked and labeled accordingly. Okay. So based on the previous graphics and the control flow graph traversals, we have here some other graphics related to lockbit families and black matter. So we have 2 groups of 2 families each. So the black matter and the black matter logbit, the blue and the red graphics, are taken from lockbit, from black matter binaries, but we have a transition. So the blue line is for the actual original black matter ransomware. You see that the blue graphics follow a similar pattern. And the red line, which is the transition of black matter to lockbit ransomware, follows a similar pattern. Maybe we can say that there is no difference and the graphic should be highlighted in the same color. But actually the samples of transitioning from black matter to lockbit are slightly different from the original black matter applications. Okay, so we have another 2 families, which is lockbit third, the last version of lockbit, which I believe they also call themselves lockbit black. And a lot of variations of this ransomware because there was a code leak not long ago. So you see the yellow graphic, and there is a green not necessary. We don't see the green because the green overlaps with yellow. So there are a lot of Lockbit 3 ransomware families which are actually the same code. No byte maybe at all in the logic of the applications. Okay, so we actually kind of try to prove that there is no difference at the code level. Okay, so what we have here is the first line from 15 Lockbit 3 variations. So there are a lot of hackers which just found available the sources of this Lockbit, took them, and built their own version of this ransomware, but with a different ransom node. So I've said that each line here represents the first line in these ransom nodes. You see how different they are. Maybe we find some similarities like 2 or 3 or something like that, but most of them are pretty different. So the intention of the hacker using this ransomware is different compared to the actual Lockbit, but the code has no difference compared to between Lockbit and these variations here. Okay, so in the next few slides we will see some 4 genealogies, including most of the most common ransomware families that we have dealt with. So this is an extension of the Twitter figure, which we have seen in the first few slides. The gray box is actually the capture of the same Twitter figure, but we found that there is more to this graph, and that Ryuk, which was at the top in the previous figure, actually is a derivation or inherits from Bitpaymer. Bitpaymer comes from Hermes, and there is also a Doppelpaymer version of Bitpaymer, which branched at the same time with Ryuk. And the quantum ransomware, which of course is dead at this moment, also inherits from Sunrise Locker and Astro Locker, which have as root Mount Locker, and that the current state of this Conti ransomware evolution, we know that Conti is no more active. However, the Royal ransomware extended into Black Suite, and the Black Suite has a dark web page for victims, so they are up and fully functional at the moment. So the green boxes means that the ransomware are still active, red that they are dead or not working anymore, and the blue is something in between. Okay, so there is another branch of this Conti team, which includes Karakurt, Black Basta, and Black Byte, and they were also active. Karakurt doesn't operate anymore since August this year, but the other two, Black Basta and Black Byte, are still active and may have active victims at the moment. And these 3 operators somehow also operate Akira, which is one of the most prolific ransomware at the moment. Okay, so this is the second genealogy of rival ransomware. And we have here a ransom node compare between GunCrab first version at the right and Argus ransomware, which is a split of this GunCrab. Maybe the operators are the same. The similarities are not as high as in the previous ransom nodes, but we still see that some blocks of text keep the same pattern. Okay, GunCrab evolved into Revil, also known as Sodinokibi, and Revil evolved into LV ransomware and DarkSide. Okay, all of these final nodes, the ransomware families are dead at the moment, but pieces of code behind the original ransomware families are shared to another one, other families, as we will see further. Okay, this is a different genealogy, the third one, for Makop or Phobos. So these ransomwares shares a lot of similarities with Kriak and Crisis, their roots, which started 8 years ago or 10 years ago, something like that, and they're still present. They don't appear as Crisis because the code is a bit different, but the techniques and the logic behind these binaries are pretty much the same. So this is one of this one and the next one, the log bit, are the most complex genealogies, and the roots here are hidden tier, Kriak and Crisis, and hidden tier evolved into Amnesia 2, the second version, and we have a split with OLED, which also has a root into Kriak. Amnesia also evolved into Scarab, and this is a orange box because I'm not sure that it died or not. So it may the guys behind me be still active. And this Scarab evolved into Ransom Hub, which we don't see a lot of activity from them, but they may be still active. And the other branch at the top, Crisis, evolved into Dharma, Phobos, and eventually Makop shares from all these roots. Makop is a still active ransomware, and they operate different than all the others. They don't have a ransomware as a service page on dark web and so on. They want you to submit them an email and so on. So maybe that's why they are still active. Okay, so this is the fourth genealogy of Lockbit. So this genealogy started with the CRTR ransomware, Everbe, and GunCrab, and there was a first merge between Everbe and DCRTR, and we at the bottom here we see Babuk ransomware, which evolves into Play ransomware, and CyberVault and Rorschach. The Play ransomware is still active, and they are one of the most prolific ransomware, along with Akira and Lockbit. And the Revil and the first versions of Lockbit evolved into Black Matter, and then we saw Lockbit Black, or the third version. And then from this Black Matter and Lockbit, we see a lot of variations based on the leaked code, and also Black Cat, which was one of the most interesting ransomware, but they were disrupted in the beginning of this year. Okay, so this is an overview of a merge between what was possible to merge between these families. So we see that the Revil and the Lockbit genealogy merged together because DarkSide, which comes from Revil and GunCrab, also contributes to this Lockbit Black, the final version. And I believe that at the moment we have more variation of this Lockbit Black than actually the Lockbit itself. So the code is the same, but we have different ransom nodes. Okay, Play, Ransomware, and CyberVault are also active. So this genealogy ends up in still active families and operators. We have the Conti genealogy, which inherits from Hermes Ransomware and Mount Locker, and also all the final families, which evolved from these roots are still active: Black Suite, Black Basta, Black Byte, and Akira. And the last one is Makop and Phobos ransomware, which inherited from Hidden Tier, Priac, and Crisis. And we also have the Ransom Hub, which may be still active. And this would be the third genealogy. Okay, so there are not so many roots of these ransomware families. And when I'm saying roots, I'm actually talking about some trend shifters, or those who actually developed the first versions of these ransomwares years ago. So we have seen here that we have 3 genealogies, and there may be some other 3 or 4, I guess, but they don't present high interest, at least at the moment. Okay. We also have seen that the leaked code, which appeared from Conti, Ransomware Lockbit, and Babuk, allowed novice hackers to have like strong weapons, but they don't have enough skills to operate the strong weapons. But the weapons actually compensate their lack of skills. So instead of building vulnerable cryptographic code and allowing us to recover the data, they have strong pieces of code, and we're at a point where we don't have too much to do in order to recover this data. Okay, I believe there were some hackers when this leaked code appears or were published in the first place, because the hackers were not agreeing with each other. And maybe the hackers which leaked the code from the others believe that they're making something good out of this. But in fact, this leak of code acted like a Hydra head cut. And we now see a lot of new ransomware families, maybe keeping most of the code, maybe editing it somehow, but there are more and more families which are actually well implemented. So you can reverse them, but the cryptography behind is not reversible. Okay. So while these ransomware families evolve and come up with different strategies, hackers find new vulnerabilities and so on, I believe the security products also evolve. So what we have seen here is some kind of leaking the hacker behavior and artifacts left behind. So if they were not leaving these artifacts, we were not able to do that. But now if we know all of that, we can maybe go further and try to better label these families, or maybe try to prevent, I don't know, maybe the kind of prevention related to code sharing or other similarities that we're trying to surface here. Thank you very much, and if there are questions.
Based on your analysis, do attackers use ransomware as their last option?
Can you please repeat the question?
Do attackers use ransomware as their last option? Well, when they already infected the system and so on?
The last options in the way that they have other options?
Yeah.
So the ransomware infection actually is is a step in the in the path of getting some money from these victims. So usually the ransomware infection actually ensures the hacker that the victim must pay to the hacker in order to recover his data. So this data is not only encrypted on the systems locally where the data is found, but we also have exfiltration attempts from the hacker. So if you're not paying and you're trying to recover yourself, maybe the hacker will leak the data to get this money from you. So they maybe leak the data and not encrypt the files, but if you just, then if you don't want to pay, there's nothing wrong happening, but only the fact that your data is leaked and may be accessible. So they rely on this encryption to make sure that you either have a difficult time into recovering or trying to pay to get back on faster.
So you were speaking about actually the ransomware code that was leaking and small hackers reusing that code. Do you see many different groups doing that? Are you tracking them, or how is that? How many of them are doing that? Do you have any idea?
How many groups are leaking?
Well, using the leaked source code, for instance, from Babook, etc.
I'm not sure if we are tracking those who leak this
because
source code from past ransomware families. However, if I'm seeing a binary which inherits a lot from Babook, technically I know that it's Babook behind it, and because there are a lot of similarities, at least at the code level, but there are also some vendors that label as Babook these families, while they may not be Babook ransomware. So we're trying to correlate the labels we're seeing on different vendors, the code shared, maybe the ransom note, and trying to fit all these three technologies together to see if we're dealing with the actual family or with a different version of it.
Thank you for the presentation. If I reverse engineer two ransomware families and I see that they use the same packer, should I think that they are the same threat actor behind, or they just inspired each other as with the ransom notes? Now I'm talking about a malware packer, not a free packer or commercial packer.
Yeah, I can't say for sure that if the hacker behind are the same operators for these different branches, but maybe it doesn't matter if the operators are. We've seen the post from Twitter from someone which was tracking the Conti line. I believe that this level of details is necessary for you to plot the correct genealogy or the correct line of these ransomwares in order to point to the correct guys to say so. So if you're tracking these hackers behind and you're trying to go on them and seize them on something like that, maybe you want to know all of this. So maybe police and law enforcement are more interested in something like that. But we as a security vendor, we just find that interesting, and being able to plot this kind of information just help us to understand better what we're dealing with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Do you have a similar way of tracking the threat actor groups that use this ransom, or you're focusing only on the ransomware families?
Can you repeat, please?
Sorry?
Can you please repeat the question?
Do you have a methodology to track the threat actors group that use this ransomware, or you're focusing only on the malware families itself?
Yeah, we don't have yet the features required to track the hacker groups, but we believe we can build something like that in the near future. I don't know if it's days or months, but it's not much until then.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question regarding quantum computers, because we are, some experts say we are just waiting for this revolution. And I would like to know your thoughts about how can that affect the ransomware and all the encryption related to it. Thank you.
I've seen some, I don't know, blog posts and researches saying that at the moment we don't have enough qubits to break the RSA keys, because this is the what we require to recover this data. So we have seen the third genealogy, which involves Markov, Phobos, Crisis, Dharma, and this kind of families. Most of them use the same RSA 124 bits. So if I'm able to break any of these keys, I'm kind of recovering the data of, I don't know, a significant percent of the victims affected. But I'm pretty sure that some of the victims are aware of what's coming, and most of them back up the encrypted data, and most of them hope that when the day will come to have enough qubits to actually break these keys, they will actually recover their data.
Yeah, like the NSA says, harvest and later you decrypt in the future, no?
Yes, they keep the data and they hope to decrypt using these quantum algorithms in the future when the qubits will be enough to do this. But by the time, maybe these ransomware families will look totally different.
Thank you.